Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today we're returning back to r/nosleep with a story from Mr. Outlaw. Let's begin. Remember those creepy chain emails from the early mid-2000s? I got one this morning. Maybe you're too young or too old to know what I'm talking about. So I'll explain first. Basically, somebody sends out an email with a subject line like, "Keep reading, do not ignore." And then the message itself will contain some kind of short horror story. Something about how a schoolgirl was pushed down a well, and if you didn't repost it or forward it to X amount of people, she'd come crawling out of your toilet and drag you down into the pipes. Something like that. They all typically followed a similar formula. The first time I got one of them was back in middle school. Not an email, but a Facebook post that popped up on my feed. I don't exactly remember what the story was, just that it terrified me enough at the time that I actually did repost it. Something my friends completely roasted me for after the fact. But hey, no demon girl ever came crawling out of my toilet, so who's to say I didn't make the right call? Obviously, the entire concept of these chain mails or scare mails was pretty dumb and juvenile. And most of the stories were so terribly written that they could only ever work on skittish 13-year-olds. But as dumb as they were still entertaining enough to engage with back in the day. It was fun to just fuck around and pretend they were real. Core childhood memories. So this morning I was sitting at my desk watching YouTube while sipping coffee. My typical routine before work. Before leaving, I did a quick scan through my emails. Nothing unusual. There was an invite to a wedding, a newsletter from my old university, my boss complaining about some bullshit. But right before I was about to close my laptop, something new landed in my inbox. It was from an address I didn't recognize. Just one word in the subject line. Sorry. Bit weird, a bit concerning. Probably malware? I barely responded to the emails that I actually have to. Why would I bother with this? I ended up clicking on it anyway. Life had been a bit monotonous recently. Maybe this would prove to be something interesting. The message was only a few sentences long. I'll paste it below. One night, a woman was hit by a speeding car at night. The driver was intoxicated and did not call the police. Instead, he dragged her bleeding body down into the sewers and left her there to die. They found her body 2 days later and brought it into the morgue, where they cleaned her up and tucked her away. But when they went to take her out 2 weeks later, she was missing. Her body bag filled with stinking sewage. If you do not forward this to 5 others by midnight, she will be in your room tonight. She will seek vengeance. This is not a joke. You know what you did. I think I laughed out loud after reading it. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd seen one of these. What a blast from the past. Albeit a bit more intense than the ones I remembered seeing as a kid, but I suppose that these things evolve over time. I was still a bit perturbed that it had been sent to my work email, but then again, I work at a pretty big company and it probably wasn't a terribly hard thing to find. The email contained an attachment as well, a single PNG file named Her. I just figured it was going to be some AI-generated image of a demon woman, an attempt at a cheap scare in order to prolong the joke. So I decided to humor the sender by opening it up. But there was nothing there. Just a plain black image. What a letdown. I didn't think about it much for the rest of the day. Work was stressful, and I had to force myself to endure a boxing class afterwards. By the time I got home, I was ready to eat dinner and just pass out. After eating, I was lying on my couch, sipping sangria while messaging this girl, Elisa, that I'd matched with on Hinge. I was having trouble coming up with things to talk about, so I mentioned the email. She was about the same age as me, so I figured she'd get a kick out of it. Which she did. She gave me her own email and asked me to forward it to her. She wanted to see it, just curious. So I sent it over. Then I put my phone down and went to go take a shower. When I checked my phone again, she'd sent another message.
Holy shit, that's terrifying.
I messaged her back something like, I know, right? I'm shitting bricks just thinking about it. But she told me she wasn't joking, and that she was talking about the story.
Look at the image again, and turn your brightness all the way up. Look closely.
It wasn't exactly what I wanted to read before going to bed, but I went ahead and did so. I opened up my email and then re-downloaded the file. Then I turned the lights off and raised the brightness on my phone as high as it could go. I stared intently at the screen. It took some time squinting, but I was able to see it. Elisa was right. It was absolutely fucking terrifying. You still couldn't see much, but you could see just enough. A set of floating teeth just barely reflecting the minimal light there was. The crescent shape suggested a smile. 2 eyes hovered above. Both of them were unnaturally wide, as if they were actively being pried open by unseen hands. Immediately, I turned the lights back on. You know that feeling you get when you dig into your pockets and your wallet or phone isn't there? I was feeling something similar to that, but with an added layer of dread. The details just didn't add up. Was the email a joke or a genuine attempt at a scare? It was too terribly written to be serious, but if it was a joke, then why was this image the creepiest shit I'd ever seen? Elisa sent another message, saying that she'd used Lightroom to lift the exposure, make the image as bright as possible. I stared at her second email sitting in my inbox before opening it up. And this is the point where any humor or nostalgia was completely sucked away from the situation. The image was still extremely dark, but enough details had been revealed for it to be somewhat clear that it was a woman's face. Well, kind of. More like something imitating a woman, something extremely uncanny. It felt like my brain was trying to convince me that it was actually a mannequin, mostly due to the paper white skin, but the longer I stared at it, the less likely that seemed to be. Because I'd never seen a mannequin with an expression like that. Something so hateful, so evil. It didn't seem possible for any person or machine to recreate. A smile was there, though the jaw was clenched, the teeth pressed tight together. The nostrils were large, flared wide open, each one like a shotgun barrel. The eyes were owl-like, stretched out in a painful-looking way, but the brows were drawn down, the skin furrowed heavily between them, as if this person was actually supposed to be squinting. A contradiction of features. I don't know how else to explain it. I tried doing a reverse image search, but it came back empty. I know that's not definitive proof of anything, but I'd been hoping that at least an obscure art form would have turned up. The picture was just so odd and frightening that being able to connect it to something would have maybe settled my nerves a bit. Whoever had conjured this whole thing up was good, because it had freaked me out in a way that I really didn't like. I was standing in the kitchen, just mulling it all over when somebody knocked at my door. I checked the time, seeing 10 past midnight. Weird, but all right. I checked the people, seeing a cop standing in my door. Even fucking weirder. I opened it and immediately she asked me to step outside. No explanation, just this dead serious look in her eyes, as if she thought I was hiding a body somewhere. I asked her what this was about. "Come out now," she said, her voice now barely above a whisper. "Just do it." Maybe I'd done something while I was blackout drunk. In any case, I obliged. As soon as we were out in the hall, the cop shut the door behind me. She gestured for me to follow her, and I did. The first question she asked me once we'd made it outside to the parking lot was whether I lived by myself or not. I told her, by myself. She took a deep breath, introduced herself as Officer Vienna, before explaining that she had been called over here to deal with a noise complaint. I knew who she was talking about. A guy named Sam living 3 doors down from me. Rich college kid. Kind of annoying as fuck, but I wasn't the one who called it in. After warning him to shut the music off, she'd walked outside to leave when she looked over at the window leading into my bedroom. I live on the 1st floor, and my unit's right beside the entrance. If you were about average height, you'd be able to see into it from the lot. She said that I hadn't closed my blinds and that I left my window open, and that the street lights were just bright enough for her to be able to see inside. She said that she saw the outline of a figure standing by the door, completely still, as if they were waiting for somebody to enter. She said it didn't look like a doll or mannequin, but she got the sense it was something dangerous. The entire time she spoke, she had a hand on her weapon, her eyes continuously darting between me and the window. I did remember leaving the windows and blinds open. It's a bad habit, but somebody would have had to break through the mesh screen in order to get in. I would have heard it. Sam's music bleeding through the walls would have not been loud enough to muffle it. Not a chance. And then I realized that I'd gone into my bedroom to reach the shower about half an hour before she showed up. I hadn't seen anything then. But what if I just hadn't looked? Honestly, I didn't want to believe what she was telling me, because if it was true, then what the fuck was I dealing with? We were standing too far from the building for me to be able to see anything. So I began walking over to get a look at it for myself, but Vienna stopped me. "You probably don't want to see it," she told me. "For your own sake, I wouldn't recommend it." Her tone was earnest enough for me to believe her. I asked her what I was supposed to do then. She told me just to wait. She'd already called for backup, and once they arrived, they'd go ahead and enter my apartment and investigate it. It didn't seem like I had another option, so I told her all right. At this point, I'm still hanging on to skepticism, more as a coping tool than anything else. The backup arrived nearly 20 minutes ago, and they're still in my apartment. It was getting cold outside, so right now I'm waiting in the lobby. If anybody's wondering, no, I still haven't told them about the email. There was just no way. No way it could have been connected. But now, I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm not sure what to expect from here. If anything else happens, I'll update. Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The story in this video was read with the author's permission. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit post. Want to support me? Check the link below where you can leave a tip if you wish. And remember, don't let the shadows get too close. Good night.